World conquest, the dream of every history buff and dictator. And while I cannot establish my dominion over the earth yet, I can at least conquer it in Roblox. In my last video, I told the story of how I restored Alexander the Great's empire, which, I have to admit, was easier than I expected. So I thought to myself, what is better than a nation spanning 3 continents? Ah yes, the world. But achieving this feat is no easy task, for you see, my empire is no more. The world had reset, and I am back at square one. Surrounded by nations led by former Romans, which, to put it lightly, were not big fans. Luckily, I had one advantage. Thanks to my video blowing up, hundreds of new people joined the community, and a lot of them joined me. This flood of new recruits made me an even scarier opponent to those around me, and so for now, I was safe. Meanwhile, to the west, a war was brewing in Greece. Thespia declared war on Macedon for the justified reason of being poor. Of course, their lack of money somehow did not prevent them from hiring several of my troops as mercenaries, and after a quick exchange of insults, the war was on. The Thespians positioned their cavalry, which was made up of Seleucids led by me, on their southern flank, while the Thespian infantry, commanded by Pelucin, was stationed in the north. As the battle began, I ordered my troops to cross the bridge, defeating the opposing Macedonian cavalry and occupying the town, before swinging back north to assist our infantry. When we arrived, we found a shocking sight. The Thespians, for some reason, decided to form a square while fighting infantry, and were being overwhelmed fast. In a last-ditch effort to save them from total collapse, I ordered my exhausted cavalry to charge, managing to save the Thespians with heavy casualties. This, however, wouldn't be enough. When the Thespians respawned with their cavalry, they finished off what remained of our forces before capturing the town. The Thespian morale shattered, and their disorganized army failed to match their Macedonian counterparts in the following engagements, leading to a narrow defeat. Following the battle, the high command within Thespia began blaming each other, and eventually even us for the defeat, before disbanding their nation and surrendering to Macedon. This turn event meant that Macedonia was now the premier power of Greece, and with the addition of Thespia's land, the strongest economy in the world. Luckily for them, I was busy elsewhere. You see, the Egyptian queen, Seiko, was overthrown by a Roman proconsul, Mark Antony, who effectively seized control of Egypt by installing a new puppet queen in her place. This blatant attempt to take over Egypt by Rome could not go unanswered. I rallied my army and negotiated the vassalage of Judea before entering the Sinai with my army. With this, Mark had lost all support in Egypt and was quickly overthrown by an Egyptian noble who agreed to become a Seleucid vassal. After this, I set my sights on Greece. Drunk on victory, I decided to remove the last major threat to my dominion over the east, Macedon. Unfortunately, I lacked a navy to transfer my army across the Bosphorus or Mediterranean. But after thinking for a bit, I remembered Hannibal's legendary crossing of the Alps, and decided that I am going to cross the Caucasus. After a grueling march through the mountains, into Ukraine, and crossing the Danube, I had finally made it to Macedon, where, in a quick victory, I defeated their army at Amphipolis. Little did I know, though, my streak of victories was about to end. Alarmed by the Seleucid victory, the Macedonian king Top Hat decided to bring a friend from another community. Conquest. So what exactly is conquest? Basically, it's the older brother of Age of Iron. Taking place in the Napoleonic Wars, it is nearly identical. And do you remember that friend I mentioned? His name is Unique, one of the most famous commanders in Conquest, and he brought with him many more people, greatly strengthening Macedon. And so came the day of the battle. The Macedonian cavalry got close, harassing my infantry and baiting them into pursuing them, forcing me to order a charge. As my army advanced, Unique ordered his troops to spread out, dividing my army further and further as it was bombarded by missile fire. With my army in chaos and spread out across the map, Unique took his time, slowly killing my army with repeated cavalry charges and arrows. My army had been reduced to dust, but there was one last hope. My cavalry respawned and launched a desperate attack on the Macedonians, who Unique ordered into squares with archers in the middle. This resulted in my charge getting bogged down, and when Unique ordered his cavalry to counterattack, my army routed. After 18 battles, I was finally defeated for the first time. My aura of invincibility was shattered, and Unique was hailed as the Nicator Breaker for breaking my streak of victories. But Macedonia was far from done. Soon after, Unique captured Cyprus, and then landed in Phoenicia, where we fought yet another battle. This time, the first two engagements were inconclusive, with both sides suffering casualties but failing to gain the upper hand. In the third engagement, the inexperienced majority of the Seleucid cavalry was encircled and destroyed after disobeying orders to retreat, forcing the rest of the army into an unfavorable fight which was easily won by the Macedonians. When our reinforcements finally arrived, Unique ordered his troops to cross the bridge, where they could hold off my fresh forces. Seeing this deadly choke point, I ordered my cavalry to cross the river upstream in order to flank the Macedonians. Unique responded by ordering his own cavalry to mirror mine, launching a devastating charge as my troops were about to exit the river. Despite repelling the Macedonian cavalry and managing to cross, I ordered my infantry into a premature attack, leading to them being defeated before my cavalry could arrive to flank the Macedonians. With this final engagement, the battle was over. My forces were yet again defeated, and my troops' morale shattered. I retreated back to Antioch, but I soon realized I had an even bigger problem at home. In my satrapies, a conspiracy was brewing. Moki, one of my governors, had plotted to gain independence by working with Persia and defecting with half my army to their side. The Persians declared war soon after, and the army quickly marched to Antioch. I was surrounded on all sides by enemies and traitors, forced to watch my dream of world domination buried before me. But if I was gonna die, I would do it in a blaze of glory. Outside the walls of my capital city, both armies clashed, neither managing to get the edge, until horns were heard from afar. A massive cavalry force, led by Moki himself, descended down the hill straight towards the battle. But instead of crashing into the Seleucid flank, Moki led his cavalry straight into the northern wing of the Persians, routing them in a decisive charge and forcing them to retreat. Stuck between the Seleucid army and the sea, the Persians were slaughtered to a man. You see, this was all a plot organized by me and Moki. We already knew the Persians were planning to attack us, and by baiting them into believing they had the upper hand, we convinced them to declare the war early, catching them off guard and defeating them before they could pose a major threat. Following this victory, Persia surrendered, its land being annexed by the Seleucids. Despite defeating the Persians, the threat to my capital was not over. The Macedonian army was at the gates, and I knew that my army was in no condition to fight them. You see, the reason for my recent defeats were primarily due to the new recruits. My nation had been flooded with so many new people that my once disciplined and well-trained army had become nothing short of a disorganized mob. Additionally, my insistence on commanding alone had left me constantly overstretched, jumping from one corner of the battlefield to another and often being caught off guard. Reform was needed, and thanks to a few talented individuals, over the course of the next week, the Seleucids trained every single day, transforming my rabble of recruits into a disciplined and formidable force. My command structure was revolutionized, allowing multiple people to command divisions while maintaining cohesion under an overall commander. The date of the next battle arrived. My army rallied on the outskirts of Antioch, preparing to defend the city from the approaching Macedonian host. Yet again, Unique implemented this plan, using archers and cavalry to harass the Seleucid formation, hoping to break it into smaller pieces. But my trained and disciplined troops refused to pursue the frustrated Macedonian cavalry, and when the opportunity came, I ordered a ferocious charge, using my cavalry to prevent the Macedonians from retreating and inflicting heavy casualties. But yet again, my formation was beginning to break. Troops were separating and at risk of being picked off. But thanks to my officers keeping their troops in line, we quickly fell back and reformed our formation. Unique once again ordered his troops to harass and bait the Seleucid army into splitting up, but this would fail once more, as my troops would launch one last coordinated charge, routing the Macedonians off the field. Soon after, Unique was forced to retreat back to Macedon, with his new gains in Phoenicia and Cyprus being completely erased. With this great threat to my territory now gone, I finally looked towards the west, where a massive war raged. Gaul and Carthage fought against the Romans and Massalians, and despite the Massalians being defeated and conquered by Gaul, the Romans fared much better. With Unique's help, They defeated the Carthaginians in the battles of Palermo and then Zama, before preparing to take Carthage itself. By now, the Romans and Macedonians had become good friends, and I knew that if they were to defeat Carthage, I would be next on the chopping block. And so I decided to finally build a fleet, sailing with my army and arriving just in the nick of time to save Carthage and preventing its fall. But the state of Carthage was horrendous. Its leadership was incompetent and its members were inactive. And so, I took temporary control of Carthage, reforming it and appointing a new and much more competent leader, my friend Umphius. With the west stabilized, I could finally focus my efforts on Macedon. Sailing and landing in Thrace, I would once again meet Unique's army in the field. This time, we lost the first engagements, leading the Macedonians to party their imminent victory, only to be counterattacked and defeated soon after by Seleucid cavalry. Unique once more rallied his army, but thanks to a decisive assault led by Moki, the Macedonians were caught off guard, and their southern flank was routed. But Unique's infantry quickly closed in from the north, aiming to encircle the Seleucid army. To prevent this, I ordered my army to retreat and reorganize near the river. Now no longer at risk of encirclement, my army counterattacked, and with the help from the cavalry, the Macedonians were once more defeated. I was at the cusp of victory, but I would have to land one final decisive blow in order to finish this battle. With the Macedonian army respawning, I marched my army to the bridge, correctly predicting that Unique would split his army in order to encircle us. As his forces got closer and closer, I left 1/3 of my infantry, commanded by my friend Fardin, and charged Unique's northern army with what remained of my forces. Alright, here's what we're gonna do. Everyone cross the bridge, cavalry, come here. Come here, cross the bridge, everyone cross the bridge right now, go, 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 go. I'm gonna leave like one guy on infantry to hold his ground, to hold the bridge at all cost. Heavy fighting ensued, with Unique himself crossing the river with his cavalry in order to turn the tides, only to be counterattacked by the royal cavalry led by Rocky. While in the bridge, Fardin held off the Macedonians bravely, killing much of the enemy army. Finally, just as Fardin's army gave in, we finished off what remained of the northern Macedonian army, and the battle was won. Following this brilliant victory, Macedon desperately sought allies, eventually managing to get Sparta to join their side of the war. The Spartan army planned to join forces with the Macedonians and together throw us back into the sea. In order to prevent their armies from being unified, I divided my force in two, with Moki heading to capture the Macedonian capital of Pella, while I invaded the Spartan holdings in Anatolia. When the Spartan army led by Beans arrived to stop me, they were easily defeated, and shortly after, I received news that Moki had defeated Unique in a close battle. Despite his infantry being slaughtered by Unique, he managed to launch a desperate cavalry charge and rout the Macedonian forces with heavy casualties. Following this great victory, I bestowed Moki with the title of Diadochos, making him heir to the Seleucid Empire, and sent him off to the Peloponnese to continue the war against Sparta, while I returned to Macedonia, where I would defeat Unique once more in Varia. However, following the Battle of Varia, the war had entered a stalemate, with me and Unique exchanging victories but failing to move the front in any direction. Luckily for me, Moki had won yet another brilliant victory at Marathon. Then, joined by me, we entered Sparta, forcing them to surrender. Meanwhile in Epirus, a rogue general by the name of Zudi launched a rebellion, hoping to seize control of Macedon, followed then by a popular revolt led by Mark Antony, who would take the city of Athens. Unique would then quickly crush the rebel general at the Battle of Ioannina, forcing him to retreat and join forces with the Athenian rebels. And while they managed to defeat the Macedonian army led by King Tophat, capturing Boeotia, infighting ensued, as Mark Antony was overthrown and forced to flee to the Seleucid Empire, while the weakened rebels led by Zudi were defeated twice at Lamia and then Athens. Despite the defeat of the rebels and Sparta's surrender, this stalemate continued, and I began to look to open new fronts. So when a Roman plot to rig the Byzantine elections was discovered, we quickly created an alliance and agreed to launch an invasion of Italy. Leaving Moki in charge of the Macedonian front, I landed in Sicily, defeating an army made of Macedonians and Romans, led by Consul Kyrene at Syracuse. I would then march north to Calabria, but the promised Byzantine support had yet to arrive, so I continued north, only to discover a horrifying sight, a Roman Byzantine army at Neapolis. The Byzantines had betrayed me, signing a peace treaty with Rome in which they would become a puppet state in return for assistance in repelling the Seleucid invasion. Despite this betrayal, I would yet again defeat them, forcing Kyrene and his supporters to flee to Macedon. Soon after, the Seleucid army entered Rome, negotiating a peace treaty with the new consul Maximus and annexing much of Magna Graecia before turning Rome into a vassal state. With all of his allies defeated and unable to reclaim his capital, Unique offered to negotiate. And despite the protest of the powerless king Top Hat, a deal was agreed. In return for Macedon becoming a client state, the Seleucids will return its lands. The war was over, but one last enemy was left standing: the traitorous Byzantines, who found themselves in a civil war after Pontus declared independence. After crushing the revolt, they would attempt to take the Aegean coast, only to be defeated with ease by my army. Then, I would land in Macedon, before marching along the coastline to the capital city of Byzantium, where another victory would follow. Despite the fall of their capital city, the Byzantine emperors remained defiant, opting for one last battle in Nicaea, where they would be defeated yet again and be forced to surrender, losing their Pontic lands and being vassalized. To conclude my streak of expansions, Umphius had offered to make Carthage into a Seleucid province. With no one left to oppose me, I annexed every vassal state I had with little resistance. And so, I had finally done it. From the Caspian Sea to the Atlantic, from the Alps to the Sahara, I had conquered Romans, Spartans, Macedonians, Byzantines, and Persians. Every foe has been vanquished, every nation forced to bend the knee. Now, I could sit back and... Whoa, what the... Having conquered the entire world, there was only one thing left to do. I announced my death. This vacuum of power led every nation and general that served me to quickly lay claim to my empire. It fractured and collapsed into warring states, some fighting to be my successors and others fighting to bring back old nations. You too, my dear viewer, can participate in the struggle for power and try to forge your own destiny by joining the Ages of Iron Discord in the description. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I work alone on these videos on a beat-up laptop and a cheap microphone, and showing your support by making sacrifices to the algorithm really does make the difference. Again, thank you, and have a good day.